Well, so it is 12:01. Let's go ahead and get started. So I'm Julie Koss from American Structure Point. I am on the SMPS Indiana chapter board. So welcome and thank you for joining us today. We're so glad that you were able to be with us. Wanted to start off real quickly just to let you know about a couple of events that we have coming up for the rest of the year for SMPS Indiana. So hopefully you can join us for those. On August the 6th, we have our annual meeting that's coming up. Our SVPs are out there now. We'd love to have you. It's going to be a great opportunity for you to provide us some feedback on what you'd like to see with SMPS Indiana for our next year. With the challenges that are going on, we would love to hear from you. So then we have September 24th, which is our marketing and business development palooza. Thanks to Brian for that last year.
Thanks to you.
So that's an annual event. We just have our first one last year, and we actually had a great participation. So we are doing that again this year. It is going to be a really good mix of business development and marketing presentations. So I would encourage you to go check that out. It will be an online virtual session all day, and then we'll have a meet and greet afterwards for those who would like to participate in something in person. And then October the 15th, we have a free webinar that we'll be offering. It's called Confident Presence for Networking. Our SVPs will be coming out for that pretty shortly, so look forward to that as well. And then November 12th is going to be our healthcare panel. So we were supposed to have done that earlier this year, but with COVID and everything that's happened, we had to move that. And so it should be a great session. There's a lot going on with healthcare, so I think you'll get a lot of good information out of that. I'm going to now turn it over to Caroline Hall with Reprographics. She is our top sponsor for SMPS Indiana. And we'd like to thank you, Caroline, and your company, and we'll let you take it from here.
Thank you, Julie. Hi, everyone. I wish I could see your faces. I miss you all so much. My name's Caroline Hall. I'm with Reprographics. It's my family's business. My mom and dad started it actually 35 years ago when they were engaged to be married. We're connected with this industry specifically because we actually got our start as blueprinters. We've very clearly evolved, thank goodness, otherwise we wouldn't be here today. And we've really grown into the display graphics and on-demand print side of things. So I'm just here to say hello, of course, let you know that I miss you as well, and then share some fun, innovative things that we've been working on lately. So I'm going to share my screen and show you our Instagram page. For those of you that aren't on Instagram, you can find us on Facebook and LinkedIn. But we've been having a lot of fun or trying to make the best of this COVID situation, coming up with some innovative ways to show your brand, allow our partners to showcase their brand in other ways while we are navigating this new normal, working to open up our storefronts and the like. So this is our shop dog, Cooper. He is hard at work modeling our custom sneeze guards or desktop shields. So we produce these all entirely in-house. There's a massive shortage of acrylic worldwide, as you can imagine, with everyone trying to produce materials of this nature. So we're really fortunate to have a stock of the material and be able to custom cut and route everything in-house ourselves. So let us know if we can help you at all in that regard. Beyond custom wall coverings, floor graphics, window graphics, wall graphics, something that we've been working a lot with, of course, are your social distancing floor graphics. They're heavily textured, so they meet your slip resistant codes and just really make a strong impact. Another thing that we've been having a lot of fun with in our industry is life-size space plans. So, there are a lot of ways to incorporate display graphics into your space if you're trying to help a tenant or if you're moving into a new space and want to really plan out and get an understanding of, how you want to rearrange furniture as you're trying to distance people a bit more while you get back into the office. We'd love to dig into that with you. But overall, we're here for you at the end of the day, and just wanted to say hi, wishing everyone, to stay healthy and happy, and holler if you want to talk and connect. I will catch you guys all on the flip side.
Thank you, Caroline.
Yeah.
We'll now turn it over to Brian to get us started with our session. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Can you all see my, no, hold on, maybe not. Can you see my screen? Okay, all right, very good. So let me, I think this was Susan's, but I'll cover this. So our sponsors, right? Thank you, Caroline, with Repo Graphics. Gold, we have Wilhelm Gaylor. Is it Spawn or Spawn? And CAI. Silver sponsors. Bronze sponsors, I see Julie on there. As well as our in-kind sponsors. Boy, I say this as if, but I know how valuable sponsors are to putting on programming like this. So thank you all. And on behalf of the association, we appreciate your continued support. I told Julie before I got started that I'm more nervous about this webinar than the hundreds others we do, because I have to, at some point, see most of you face to face throughout the next year. So I have to do a good job. But on our session today, I'm joined by Mike Rendell. Mike's one of our business partners as well as executive creative director. So for as long as you've all known me, Mike and I have been working side by side, and has been instrumental in helping us grow our ideas and our concepts and visuals moving forward. So Mike, thank you for joining today. And Sarah Wesche is at the helm, really running things. So if you have any questions or comments, I told Sarah to interrupt, ask throughout, because I want to make this as interactive as possible. But more importantly, I want to make this as informative as we possibly can be. It's been a bit of time since I've seen you all. I think it's back in September, I think, at the first annual BD Palooza. And a lot's changed since then, right? We were in a world, we were on 10 years of continual growth, right? The water level just kept rising and rising and rising, and things were good. And while we've always talked about these three deadly C's, which I think we all know them by now, but if you don't, commoditization, compressed selling time, and consensus decision-making are challenges we've always had to deal with. But we've had this situation occur that it's not really a change anymore. It's already happened. And when you look back to those moments in time, it's really back to that day in March 11th. I think we all knew where we were when our governor gets on the telly and says, we're not going anywhere for a while. And it's really at that point that I realized that this way we've done business will in essence change forever. In fact, we see this frequently, others talking about the fact we're really moving the future to the present. Some will say, we're really taking the year 2025 and have brought it front and center today. So this is a bit more than just a pandemic or any kind of shock to our system. We've all dealt with those. Maybe nothing as challenging as this in our lifetimes, but we have dealt with 9/11. We've dealt with the 08-09 collapse, and some of us have dealt with one or two other disruptions in our business career. And with each disruption, we tend to see some degree of economic uncertainty where things take a dip. When whatever that recovery looks like, it does take time to get that back. And with the way things are going, it might be longer than what we've experienced in the past. But the fact is, we are now living in a world where uncertainty will be part of our daily lives. But the real triple part of this triple whammy here is what we call the age of accelerations. So in the old days when disruption happened, we all just kind of hunkered down and just kind of rode out the storm and cut back where we needed to. But we live in a world now that's continuing to accelerate faster and faster. And the warning for those where your principals or leaders are expecting just a buckle down, hunker down, turtle up, whatever you want to say, and come back and resume business as usual, will be in for a rude awakening. You all know my passion and spirit for this industry and for the association. And I've always believed that marketing deserves the right spot at the table. And you've heard me at every session I've spoken at and talked about that we can't be just fulfillment. There's a responsibility and an opportunity for each and every one of you as marketers to become a leader in your organization. And I really believe this is that time. And I'm going to share some insights that some you've heard before, but there's some new ideas that Mike and I have been working on that I think are important to take into this new future we live in. Because the reality is sometimes change is so dislocative and vast that it's hard to tell a disaster from an opportunity. And I choose, being a half full guy, to make this more about optimism. But one thing is true, we all know that hope is not a strategy. We cannot hope that we're going to go back to selling and doing business development like we used to. We're not going to be doing the same things in the same way. So hoping it goes back is not going to work. And I'll tell you this, doing nothing is absolutely positively not an option. Because we now live in a world where there are more good firms, or too many, shall I say, too many good firms chasing too few of opportunities. And what I do not want you doing is to jumping to making and lowering your price as a means to compete. But if we don't change certain things right now, all that you will have left in your armor or your quiver, what do they call it, Mike? Your thing where you put your arrows, your quiver.
Your quiver.
Yeah, we can't make lowering your price be all that you have in your quiver. We need to quiver up. But because here's what happens. When things continue to expand, which we've seen over the last 10 years, that we continue to grow just by doing the same things we've always done, right? So as the market grows, your organization continues to grow. And I remember it wasn't that long ago where people said, wow, we have more projects than we could ever imagine. I hope we don't get this. So I'm actually going to charge a lot more than I normally do. But what happens is when the tide goes down, that old saying that when the water level, all boats rise with the water, but it's only when the tide goes out, you discover who's actually been swimming naked. And I think we're in for a period of nakedity, if you will, right? Because we're starting to see the market share or the market shrink. And when the market shrinks, you actually have to take market share to grow. So we live in a zero-sum game. Every opportunity now becomes more of a must-win than it was in the past because there are fewer opportunities and there are too many good firms chasing too few of opportunities. So we now actually have to go and grow actively to make that happen. And I'll tell you one thing, it's going to be very difficult to grow when everybody looks the same, sounds the same, and acts the same. So this is time for you to think about your priority positioning, which is a new concept I want us to really dig into today. And I think that's going to be the main takeaway. I think you have others, I hope, but I want you to really think about how you're positioning around your particular priorities and how they fit your prospects. So we've seen three new realities. Number one, business development has changed forever. And for those that are marketers on this call, I only see one continuum. I look at business development, including marketing and sales, right? From the beginning to end, it's all one revenue path. The second reality, early is the only way to win moving forward. And the third reality, the future belongs to those who act now. So for those that are in marketing, that are looking at making a move, they're looking to become more influential within your organization, this is your time. Because your firm has to take action. And wouldn't it be great if you were the one leading the change that needs to take place? And all we're going to do is share with you these realities and how you can become that leader within the organization. Because the number one reality, business development has changed forever. Two key differences, where you're selling and how they're buying. Julie and I were talking before the call started that early April, I thought we'll get back to being face-to-face here pretty soon. Then you realize that we may never shake hands again. We may never be face-to-face with prospects again, or it may take to the very end. But the fact is we're going to have to get really, really good at selling virtually and selling remotely. And for those that are so used to relationship building along the lines of golf, lunch and learns, after hours events, it's going to be hard to pull them together. In fact, your prospect may not even want to participate even more so. So we have to learn to become much more influential and less dependent on our traditional relationships, especially as decision-making teams keep getting bigger. Second, how they're going to buy is fundamentally changed. And the reality is we're never going to go back. We're never, ever, ever going to go back the way things were. It's going to be fundamentally different. And what we've done over the last 4 or 5 months is we've really taken the year 2025 and we've scrunched it down to today. So we have to learn to live as if we're in the year 2025. And by 2025, we're going to be using telemedicine. We're going to be using virtual meetings. All these things that we were going to be doing are now part of our structure. And the reality is, with these fundamental changes, that workshopping is not going to be the way it's going to happen. Right? We will not get through this by merely workshopping alone. And so what we're doing is we're seeing ourselves going through the biggest transition we've ever gone through as an organization. And this transition is happening right in front of our eyes. And I really want you to be open to it and understand it so you can do something about it. What's that old saying, Mike? Some people make things happen. Some people wonder what things happen. Watch. Yeah, some people make things happen. Some people wonder what happened. And some people watch, wonder, right? Make, watch, wonder. Sorry. I feel like I'm the president taking a competency test. You get my point, right? It's happening right in front of our eyes, and it's up to us to take advantage of it. Because the reality is, we have to be concerned with whether organizations can compete in a world where they are prone to make this about pricing, because commoditization is the worst spot that we can ever get to. So where we're going to sell is going to be different, right? And the game is completely changed. Face-to-face meetings may go away. Travel to sell, expense accounts. That's all so 2019, for crying out loud, right? And you've seen this. The new boardroom now is a virtual meeting. Now, that's understandable. We get that, and I think that's going to continue to be the case. And if we do get face-to-face, it's going to be toward the end of the buying journey. So the majority of your business development efforts are going to have to take place and be won on a screen. We can't just do the golf outings. It's going to be a while before you get back to those, and I don't know what that's going to look like, but we have to get really, really good at winning the screen. The bad news is, if you weren't good at presenting before, you're in trouble, which, by the way, I've heard this from so many AEC firms. What do they say, Mike? They say, just get me in the room and we'll win it, right? Because we're so good. But yep. Little do you know that the other 2 or 3 companies say what?
The exact same thing. Just get me in the room and I'll win it.
Yeah. So everybody thinks they're really good, but I would really question, and we've talked about this for some time, if we weren't really good at presenting before, you're in a lot of trouble now, because charisma is not enough to get you through. So just the idea of get me in front of them and I'll win them over just won't work anymore. We have less time to be more effective, right? We've seen all of our meeting times get cut in half. Hour meetings, who sits on a Zoom meeting for an hour anymore? That goes to 30. 30-minute meetings are now 15 minutes. So you have to be great out of the gate. You absolutely positively have to drive a connection right away. And that's why we're going to introduce this concept called priority positioning. I want you to write that down, by the way. Priority positioning. Because the reality is, on the other end of that Zoom line, there are more distractions than ever before. And I know that you know how to look at your phone and check email while keeping your eyes on the screen, right? So keeping the brain engaged is super, super important. And you've got to have the right kind of visual aids to keep the brain awake. So all the same rules apply. We just have different variables that are going to make it a lot harder than what it was before when we were presenting. So how they're going to buy? They're going to buy much differently, right? Budgets are being cut. They have their own uncertainties, and they're going to be risk averse. And I know a lot of cases, you only get involved when a commitment to do something has happened first. But I think we can be a bit more influential than that. So we now have, we're selling different, they're buying different. We have these 3 deadly C's: commoditization, compressed selling time, and consensus decision-making. So not only does everyone look, sound, and act the same, they're going to ignore you till further into their buying journey. And what's going to make it even worse, decision-making teams get bigger, and in many cases, you have 15 minutes to make your case early. Because early, I'm leading into the next phase here, but early is the only way to win. And we believe organizations are not prepared and they're not equipped to sell how this world now exists. And it's nothing personal. But when someone takes the year 2025 and slaps it right on top of this year and saying, this is the way business is being done, I don't know of any firm out there that was super prepared and super equipped to make that happen and to win in that environment. So while you're not alone, the key is, what are you going to do about it? And how much time are you going to spot your competitor? If your competitor chooses to take action right now, how much time are you going to give them to gain that advantage? Because the future will belong to those who prepare and equip their teams to be successful moving forward. So a new concept we've been talking about, it's super simple, but I like it. It talks about the different phases of what we're involved in projects. And really this does a good job mapping the 3 deadly C's. Because as we know, 70% of the buying journey is done before they invite you in. In fact, we can call it where the RFP comes in. So they've spent a good amount of time keeping you at bay. You want to get in, but they're not letting you in like they used to. They're ignoring you, and they'll issue an RFP saying, this is what we want. This is what we need. So not only are you not influential anymore, you get there and then they slap this big decision-making team who each have their own priorities, and don't have a lot of time to really understand them like we used to. So when you have less time with more decision makers, it's no surprise that they're going to drive this down to price, because their job and their desire is to bring in 2 or 3 competent providers. And if they can make everybody the same, then why wouldn't price be way more influential? And while you might think you're different, it's not what you think, it's what they believe and what they understand. And if you've watched yourself, we had a client of ours once say, well, it was a public bid, and it was in Illinois, and they said, we're allowed to look at everybody's presentations. And he said, one thing, everybody was really bad. And secondly, everybody sounded exactly the same. Everybody's got a bunch of great projects they've done with a lot of testimonials, and they all just looked completely the same. And as you understand the part of the brain that actually makes decisions, it's not real smart. It gets confused very easily. So with these 3 deadly C's, what we've done is we've brought the future to the present, and it's going to get really, really ugly for those who can't defend beyond pricing. Because defaulting to lowering your price is no way to be successful. In fact, your entire growth moving forward, whether you want to grow market share, revenue, or profitability, only exists for those who have the ability to get in early.
Hey, Brian, let me make one point on the
Absolutely.
on that process. If you wouldn't mind going back, that on top of their desire to drive down cost, and I'll avoid trying to get on a soapbox that some of you have probably heard me go on regarding RFPs in the broken process there. But remember, the reason you all sound the same is because you're all answering the same questions. The RFP is designed to get you into a place that is literally going to put you into a commoditized position. So how do we control that? We're going to talk about that in the next section, but it's really right here on screen. If you want to stop playing on price alone, you're going to have to get in ahead of that RFP.
Absolutely. Which our new reality number 2 is the early is the only way to win. The only way to be influential and to maintain your margin is you have to be getting in early. And priority positioning is going to be the key. So how it is we position ourselves so that you're able to get in earlier is crucial to your firm's success moving forward. And we're going to talk about some elements and components of priority positioning and how really important this is. And again, when we talk the 3rd challenge, who acts first is going to gain advantage. So what you don't want is your competitors actively working on their priority position when we're sitting back waiting and hoping that the world goes back to the way it used to be. And when you think about the idea of priority positioning, this all starts with simple questions, because the deciding part of the brain is the really simple part of the brain. But it all starts when someone says, why in the world should I choose you for this project? And when you're able to answer that in a way that's really, really effective, it allows you to separate yourself from your direct competitors, but it also allows you to drive priority above other options. So not only do we have to separate ourselves, but we need to become that priority, because early is the only way to win. But when you're able to drive priority, you're able to now create influence. And we all know that when you're influential, you're able to get in earlier. But guess what? Influence writes RFPs. So we know that whole idea of, man, someone's in there writing it. I believe it. But I'll also tell you this, the most influential group was the one helping write that. And your priority position is crucial to making sure that you're able to drive the RFP that puts that in your favor. So with priority positioning, we have these new tools that we need to now start deploying for today's new reality. And I want to move so far from branding, because I think the idea of branding was all to make our logo look nice and our website look fresher. But this is more serious now. This is about your ability to get in early versus waiting until the very end. So we want to do away completely with this idea of brand positioning. It's really about priority positioning. So the first thing we have to think about to become a priority to your prospect is we have to connect your real impact to their priority. So the question you have to ask is, what drives a priority? Do you think wish, wants, and needs are priorities? Which is how most RFPs are built, right? This is what we want. Can you do it and how much? Those are not connected to priorities. So below the surface, what the brain does, the brain focuses on pains, threats, and fears with an emphasis on threats. Threats are where priorities happen. When you can connect your real impact to their top priorities, you will get in earlier. So as we know, we have two brains, right? We have the rational brain and the primitive brain. And the two parts of the brain are crucial to our decisioning and how we can actually get in early. So the idea of the primitive brain is the part of the brain that doesn't know how to think, right? Uses no logic to make decisions. But guess where priorities are set? Not the rational brain, it's the primitive brain. Because the disconnect is the primitive brain does the buying and the rational brain does all the justification.
Hey, Brian, give us a couple of examples of how we all try to communicate to that rational brain.
Well, I think that the rational brain comes with too much logic, data, and information. We've been in business for so long. We have X number of engineers. We do all these things that make no sense to any particular priority that I have. So any kind of logic or data to try and separate yourself is just not effective. So that's where you get the slide where people try and sell logically, and it doesn't work. And have you ever presented something that made all the sense in the world from a rational perspective? They'd be fools to not choose you, but they didn't choose you because you didn't appeal to the deciding part of the brain. 90% of all decisions happen at the primitive brain level. Yes, go ahead. Sorry, Mike.
And again, the RFP is designed for you to spit out all that information, and we all say it. Nobody reads the RFPs anyways. The reason they don't read them is they literally can't. Their brain gets bored. They don't look at them, and they can't consume all that information. So again, that goes right back to, well, they all answer the same thing. They're all qualified. So what we typically do, and when we're competing in this RFP is we'll go, and this is why everybody wants to include photos and wants to put project pictures in there, because they're the only thing that create any kind of emotional response, right? So we got to find ways to get past that.
And even when they do give you a chance, they might even ask you, why should we choose your firm? And when you really think about it, right, you got to use your rational brain for this, does that really drive any separation? How does that eliminate a threat they have? Because the key to all of this, it doesn't matter if it's an elevator pitch or your website or your presentation, until you pull that brain through a journey and reach the primitive brain, you're never going to make the right kind of connection you need to win the day. So there's a formula of setting the pain, understand that the threat has to be established, because that's where priority happens. And then you can provide the emotional lift, which is all the good things about you. How many times have you seen a response where it's all the positive? We do this, we've done this, we have all this experience, but you've not taken the brain to make it feel like you can one and only be that group to make their threats go away? First of all, I understand your threats. And secondly, I know how to make those threats go away. This is the heart of priority positioning. Because when you're talking to a prospect and you want to get in earlier, just talking about what you do is not going to get you the meeting. It's absolutely positively not going to get you that meeting. And it's going to get worse moving forward. So when you think about, once we have this idea, we have to be able to communicate our real impact. And then from marketers, we want to start using this to create valuable insights. I think this alone is going to make your marketing effort exponentially better when you focus on insights. Because the reality is, if you want to get in early, and early is the only way to win, we have to start being like that mountain lion and hunting opportunities. We cannot be the group of the birds in the nest waiting for the mommy to bring the worms to them, right? And that's sitting back and waiting for RFPs. It's not going to work anymore because there are too many good firms chasing too few of opportunities. So when you think about this, what can insights do for us? Well, number one, you understand where a lead or an RFP comes in today. How much influence do you really have? If you didn't write the RFP, you have very little influence. Because for the most part, you've been kept at bay until the very end, and you put all these hours into responding to their wish, wants, and needs. And by the way, Sarah, the wish, want, and needs, does the brain respond to wish, wants, and needs? Sorry, you're on mute. Sorry, I didn't mean to make, sorry, I should have rehearsed that.
No.
No. It prioritizes pain, threats, and fears with emphasis on threats. That's another fundamental to Mike's point about RFPs. There's no really room to address the threats because they're not going to share them with you. They just want to know what you can do. So we know that's bad, right? So we need to find ways to drive insights because we know that early is the only way to win. So when we think about insights, insights have to be triggered to deep-rooted, not articulated threats or concerns that they have about an upcoming project or their business. But what happens when you start getting in earlier, do you see that your influence actually grows? So you can actually start meeting with the real decision maker. I'm not talking about the lead of the decisioning committee. I'm talking about the real decision maker, the owner of the business, the chancellor of the university, the president of the university, because he or she has real threats and real challenges that you can uniquely solve, but you're probably not saying it in a way that will have him or her say, get them in here. I need to talk to Mike right now. That makes all the sense in the world to me. So when you're able to get earlier, you're actually meeting with real decision makers who become your champion. And when you have that champion, they create the believers. This is where the RFPs start to be written, by the way. And once they have believers, you have complete support. That's why we all know, and it's true, that those who write the RFP are actually in the driver's seat. They might lose sometimes, but I would rather have you writing RFPs versus responding to RFPs. And if we don't change the way we go about positioning our priority positioning, we're not going to be given that chance to write those RFPs.
Hey, Brian, can
Yes.
you give us an example of the insights that, a couple of examples of insights that might drive that priority?
Yeah, absolutely. And keep in mind, I want you connecting one or two levels higher than what you're normally used to connecting to. So when you think about a university as an example, right? We can be as responsive as the day is long and talk about all the different projects we've done for whether it's dormitories or educational or research facilities. We can show them all kinds of case studies. But I really want you having that conversation, right, earlier with the president of the university talking about student enrollment, how concerned they are about student retention, how concerned they are about them staying on campus for years. Those are the kind of conversations you want to have, not responding with all the projects you've done in the past, because we need someone that's willing to fight for you. And those who will fight for you are those where you've connected your real impact to their top priority. We have this blessing, if you will, that we know the AEC space well, but it's only about 15% of our business. So we get to see a lot of, about 20%. We get to see a lot of the other world. And I'm telling you that I think there's room to bring some of these other world realities to your environment. And I think personally, one of the biggest issues I've had with AEC firms is they talk too much about what they do, not why in the world they should be in there. And they keep themselves from being able to get in early because they're not having business conversations with people. And I know it's a subtle, it's a very significant shift. But if you're going to ever expect to get in early and meet with the real decision makers, you've got to connect your impact to their priority. Because someone has to want to fight for you. And the question is, are you worth fighting for? I think I have another good write down. Are we worth fighting for? Write that down. I think that's a question that should never, ever rest in your brain. It should always be top of mind saying, are we worth fighting for? Are we able to communicate our real impact to their priority? Say, get them in early, because early is the only way you're going to be winning moving forward. So the question really to think about is, what's your current priority position? Remember, two simple questions. Why in the world should I choose you? And why should I meet with you now? Why should I just wait and have you, right, respond to the RFP when it comes out? And the root of this is your priority position, right? So guess what? The best way to find out your priority position, it's the elevator pitch. So if you want to be able to encapsulate your real priority position, I'd like you to go around your office. In fact, Mike's got something he's going to share in a little bit here on how we can actually help you with this, because I think it's crucial. I think it's absolutely crucial moving forward to be able to go around the office and say, everyone who participates in, I don't care if you're a project manager, you're an engineer, business developer, or marketer, answer me two questions. Why in the world would someone want to choose us? And why should they ever meet with us way in advance of the RFP? That should come together under your elevator pitch, because I believe that your elevator pitch is now your coveted destination, from the head principal all the way down to any other organization. Why in the world should we bring you in now? And that should show up in an elevator pitch, because you have so little time to connect with the brain. We've got to be able to do it, because if you're going to get in early, which is where you need to be moving forward, you must have a priority position that fits the threats that your real prospect wants to solve. Simple math, hard to do, right? You've got to connect your real impact to their top priority. Makes sense, but you need to do it in 30 seconds or less. And I would challenge each and every one of you. I'm setting you up, Mike, I think. I would challenge each and every one of you to go around and have people explain, why would people choose us? What's our elevator pitch? And if you're seeing answers that are all over the board, that's a problem. And when you hear those, I'd like you to play those in front of your principals and others, saying, would you take a meeting with this guy? If he said that, would you actually take a meeting saying, get in here now, I want to introduce you to the president of our university? If you're not convinced that will get the job done, we have some work to do. That's okay. We have some work to do, because that introduces our new reality number 3, is that the future belongs to those who act now. And this is part of that acceleration age you've heard me talk about over and over and over again, right? It's just happening faster than ever, every single month, every single day for that matter. So delay is not going to help any of us, and sitting back and waiting, because your competition will move faster than you. Because when you talk to most people, say, oh, we need to tighten up and, make the right cuts and just hunker down and wait for this to come out. The problem is, the ones that are going to win, they're like, hey, we're going to take market share. Remember earlier I showed you the pie chart? When that pie chart shrinks, you have to go take market share from somebody else. You have to go win work that you weren't winning before. Much different world than we're so busy responding, right, that we can't keep up. And I hope we don't get half these projects. If it hasn't changed yet, and I understand the nature of backlog, that you still might be busy, but you're going to see these effects happening sooner rather than later. So we live in a world, and this is our opportunity for those on this webinar to start being not reactive, but be proactive. Be the leader that you know that you can be, because I've given you the space at which you can. That space is all about getting in earlier. it's going to be on your shoulders to help lead your group, saying, if we're going to get in earlier, we better have a priority position that actually helps us get better meetings earlier in the process with higher level decision makers. We can't be successful personally and organizationally if we sit back and wait and just stay super busy responding to RFPs, because your losses are going to continue to grow and there will be fewer opportunities in the first place, and it's going to get ugly fast. I don't mean to be doom and gloom, because there's clearly a path out of this. But the fact is, how much time are you going to give to your competitor to do all the things we just talked about, while your leadership thinks that we can just get through this by hunkering down and just working harder and doing the things that we need to do? They will be outmaneuvered. So the question is, how much time are you going to give them? Which is why we believe the future belongs to those who take action right now.
Hey, Brian, let me jump in there too, just real quick. Guys, I know this concept of getting in earlier is not new in the AEC industry. It's something we've talked with clients for years about. But let's understand this. This is about more than doing some lunch and learns. This is more than getting in front of perhaps your peers within those other organizations and working this long track to getting towards the top. You have to have insights and thought-provoking enough ideas that CEOs want to meet with you. You have to be working to get at a higher level, more than this long tail of dealing with influencers.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you, Mike. So to make this super simple, I always wanted to make things simple, because complicated things shut me down. So I think that when we talk the biggest transition we're going to go through as an organization, as organizations, I think we have this down to 3 decisions you have to make, right? Number one, you have to want to compete, right? We live in a world where it's going to be harder to compete than it used to. And I love the old days like anybody else does. But the fact is, to be competitive moving forward, you have to want to compete, because you're going to have to do things differently than what you're used to or are comfortable with. So you have to decide that you want to compete. Secondly, you have to decide you're no longer going to accept mediocrity and eliminate all blind spots. There are business development tools that we can cover in a subsequent webinar, that what winning firms and teams are doing right now. For example, game film. We're able to watch and engage every single interaction you have and use AI to pull the right spots, who asked questions, how much talking did you do, what was your words per minute, all these pieces of information that if you don't use, your competitor could, because they want to get better on every single pitch they do. So the days of just throwing slides together and winging it are absolutely positively gone. Third, you have to commit to finding higher ground. In the route to finding higher ground, or some might say the route or route to finding higher ground is to really understand your priority positioning. What real impact do you put towards your prospects' priorities? And when you really focus on that, you will actually develop new services and new solutions that actually put you in earlier by design. But it's only when you understand your priority position can you start down this path of finding the new services and solutions that your prospects can buy from you earlier in their journey.
Brian, I think we have
Yes.
a good question here that actually kind of, I think, fits what you're talking about from Nicole. So going back to the why would someone want to meet with us question, the elevator pitch question.
Yep.
How can we convey that we're not just interested in getting their money, but building a partnership and connecting them with anyone we know that can benefit them, such as sharing our industry knowledge, etc. Is there a better way to say it? Is there a better way to do it?
Yeah, I think so. Thank you, Nicole. I think there is a much better way to say it, because it's one thing, because everyone will say, I mean, not everyone, but hey, we're not a vendor. We want to be a
Partner.
Everybody says that. They say it so much that I don't think anybody believes it, and I don't think they know what it means. I don't think the primitive brain knows what that means. So, Nicole, what I would do is I would really think about the real impact of what you said you do. What's the real impact to your prospect, to your customer, when you do all the things that you say you're doing? What's the real impact of that? And then I would go, you got to put yourself in their shoes, saying, what are their biggest threats they are currently dealing with, and think 1 or 2 levels above where you currently communicate. Take your real impact to their real threats, and then create a message around that. Your elevator pitch must be very tight to where the prospect understands it quickly and says, oh my God, I was just thinking about that. Tell me more. How do you do that? So I know we can't solve it in a quick question. It was the right question to ask, Nicole, but you've got to realize that some of the things that you're saying right now doesn't really connect at the right part of the brain. So you got to really connect it to a threat they're having.
And I assure you, when you do that, when you're able to connect it to solving a threat, answering pains, what's going to happen is you're going to realize the purity of this too. And it's going to be very genuine. And that genuine nature of this really defeats that whole idea that you're just out here to get business. It ends up becoming your reason for being. And you'll find your employees really, that alignment is really important for everybody who's pitching, because all of a sudden I don't feel like I'm selling anymore. I feel like I'm trying to get the opportunity to help more people. And that's really not lip service.
Thank you, Mike, because most people, when they think of elevator pitch, they think of, hey, what do you got going on there? But your elevator pitch should be your belief system, so passionate coming from you, but it connects to their priorities, right? We believe the biggest current threat you face is becoming a commodity in your prospect's eyes. I believe it. I honest to God believe that. And that part's not in our elevator pitch. But and what's making it worse, decision-making teams keep getting bigger, and they're ignoring your salespeople to the very end of the buying journey. It's driving a race to the bottom, driven by the 3 deadly C's. You know that, right? And we honestly believe this, that teams are unprepared and ill-equipped to sell how today's buying teams buy. Now, I share this as an example, Nicole, because it only works with CEOs who believe they're becoming commoditized, and she desperately does not want to be commoditized anymore. And she'll say, that's exactly what I'm dealing with. Everything you're saying makes sense to me. And all of a sudden I become a trusted source quickly. I didn't have to say, we want to be partners. I don't need to talk about what we do, because no one cares about what we do at that point in time. But that's the basis for a priority position. And so we create insights that are all around the same thing. So you create this real synchronization. So the idea here is, I like the turtle, because one of my friends of mine goes, I'm tired of these businesses. They think they're going to turtle up until this is all over. So I like not just the birds, but I also like the fact that you can't turtle up here or turtle down, right? We do need to be active, right? Because when you turtle up, you're going to be flipped over and then become pretty much irrelevant and immobile. And knowing that the future belongs to those that act quickly. This is the guy that also came up with the phrase, work fits the time allotted, Parkinson. But also delay is the deadliest form of denial. And I think that's why I put my heart and soul into these sessions, because we see where this is going. And I feel like this real responsibility to this particular association, this chapter, to share what we know to help. So we learned a couple things. Number one, business development has changed forever. We've seen that. I'll tell you something, you're not going to workshop your way out of this. There's not one engineer or one architect in your firm that went to a workshop and became a great engineer or architect. Being very good at business development moving forward is going to be different and will take effort. Early is the only way to win. I think we've covered the space that if you're going to wait till the end to respond to RFPs, you may as well be a low price provider. That's fine, but be very conscious the fact that you're saying we're going to be a low price provider and that's how we're going to win. That's your strategy. But if that's not your strategy, you must find ways to get in earlier. That's the need for your priority positioning. And third, the future belongs to those who act now. Now, one of the things I did want to cover is this idea, and Mike's been working on this. To me, it's a really cool opportunity for all of us, is that simple test. And it's painful. I know it's painful because you're going to hear answers. They're going to make you go, oh my God, I would not meet with that person if they said that. Is that it would be helpful to understand, if we believe that the elevator pitch is that tip point where it becomes that coveted destination. We want everyone to explain our value in a way that drives real connection and real priority. That all growth begins with telling the truth. So Mike has an opportunity. Do you want me to run the slides for you, Mike, while you introduce this idea?
Yeah, for the sake of time, let's just go ahead and do that and not switch over. So, folks, what we're going to do is tomorrow we're going to be sending out a recording to this of this webinar along with an ebook to download. But we're also going to give away to the 10th respondent or 10th register an opportunity to utilize our new elevator pitch challenge technology. So this is part of a suite that we're now offering, which we're not going to get into today fully, but let me tell you a little bit about the elevator pitch challenge. Brian, go ahead and advance. We spoke a little bit earlier about the need for an elevator pitch and how important it is to establish priority. And this is anytime that anybody asks you what you do, anytime you have an opportunity to tell somebody why they should choose you. Now, and you've only really got one shot to get this right. So when you get it, when anybody in your institution has that shot, how are they going to do with it? We call these moments of truth. And we decided we needed to find a way that you could measure your team's ability to get in earlier with higher level decision makers. So we developed this elevator pitch challenge. Brian, if you go ahead and advance. So what we do is everybody on your team will get a link and they log in and we present them with a moment of truth. And we record that that session or that pitch of theirs. We take that recording then and we do an assessment on it. Some of this is done through AI and then some of this will be done through scoring from our various consultants at RPG. We'll give each one a performance score. We'll look at some things like how long the total time it took to deliver that pitch, the grade level of that content, whether it was very technical speak or whether or not essentially, the part of the brain that makes decisions can even understand that pitch. And then we're going to look at some keywords. We'll talk with you and we'll figure out what some key points from your elevator pitch or your value proposition that we want to be hearing, and we'll track all of those things. At the end of the day, then we'll give them a overall performance score and a team rank. Brian, if you go ahead and advance. So when you get this, then you'll get a video from everybody you have do it. We'll rank them, and then you'll be able to click in and see that report and watch that video all in one deck. We're really excited about this tool. We believe it's really, like Brian said, it's tough, but this is a dose of reality that we all need. And everybody needs to be working on their elevator pitch, and everybody needs to believe that elevator pitch. And this is a real good way to see where everybody's at. So, as I said, this is part of a bigger program, which we call Revenue Catalyst, and this is part of our stage 1 triage offering. We're not going to get into it today, but we also have business development or team forensics that allow us to go and do a very in-depth analysis of your team and their ability to sell and how much revenue potential they actually have. But for this promotion, we're going to give away, as I said, 1 free elevator pitch challenge. So in your inbox tomorrow, you'll be getting a link to that page. I encourage you to share the webinar with other people. I encourage you to download the Game Changed ebook or New Priority ebook. And I encourage you to reach out to us if you'd like to learn more about these tools and what winning teams are doing right now.
Awesome. We do have a couple questions too that came in.
Awesome.
So I want to make sure we answer those here because I know we're getting close to the hour. Mike, did you have anything else you wanted to add to that before we jump into the questions?
I don't, but there is, I don't know if you saw it or not, but there is a question in the chat too. So not just the QA.
Yep.
So let's start there if that's cool.
Yep. All right. So the question from Michael, what's the best way to establish your priority position from a marketing standpoint in an effort to get those meetings with the CEO, chancellor, et cetera?
Yeah, the approach I would take is, first, I would understand your real impact on the world. And this has been always there, right? Not what you do, what's the real impact of what you do? And put that to a side. I would then start thinking about your ideal prospect. Let's say it's chancellor or president, at that highest level, what is it that he or she deals with every single day that they always drag around, that once you bring it up, it's like, oh, let me tell you about that, right? It's just those threats that are always there. And we talk about threats because pains we live with, fears we always have, but threats always get acted on. And there are some real threats, even at that particular level, that wouldn't take too much time or research to understand what a provost or what a university president is dealing with every single day. And once you understand those threats and can articulate those, this sounds simple, but it is simple. It's just hard to do. But you got to connect your real impact to those very particular threats. That's where the quote unquote magic happens, because then you're going to be able to have conversations that they want to talk about. Someone will always want to make time for someone that can make a threat go away, but you have to sometimes bring up the threat to be able to take it away. You've heard in our pitch, for example, biggest threat you face is becoming a commodity. I believe that. And if my prospect doesn't believe it, that's okay. We're just not going to work together. So I know that CEOs, some of their biggest concerns is staying relevant and not being a commodity. So understand the threats they really deal with every single day, research that, find that, then connect your real impact, and you start to see a connection between the two.
And publish content around that then.
Absolutely. That becomes your insight. Yeah, yes.
And empower your subject matter experts within your organization. That person you say, oh, we're meeting with this institution. We got to have Bob in here because he really knows this industry. Well, go to Bob and interview him and ask him about these topics and structure that interview around those topics and start publishing bits of content around that through a blog, through Facebook posts, through LinkedIn posts, whatever it may be. But make sure when you do that, you're always driving towards something, whether that's a meeting, a webinar coming up, or something of the sort.
Yep. Thank you, Michael.
Awesome.
I hope that was helpful.
Really, Ben's question actually ties to this perfectly. Since the threat to each client is different, isn't the elevator pitch then different for each client?
No, that seems very logical, doesn't it? Because I would say that there are these general threats that, because you have to be prepared to meet with someone stone cold, right? And where they don't know anything about you, don't know anything about them, because when they feel that you understand the world and challenges they're dealing with, right? They might say, well, the first one you mentioned, yeah, but the last one, for example, I had a prospect call this morning up in Michigan. 2 of our 3 deadly C's were spot on. The third one just doesn't matter to them, right? Because the way their market works, the third one doesn't matter at all. So of the 3, your ideal prospect is going to have issues with those 3 because that's your real impact. And part of this game, if you will, is finding people who value the same things you value. So your real impact, you want to find people that have the pains or threats that you share, because what we don't want is changing our messaging every time for everybody, because then you look like a group who'll do whatever you need from anybody, and you don't there's no conviction and passion. But I can't imagine, if you want to stand the university president example, I can't imagine any university president not thinking about financial sustainability beyond the current crisis, but what they're going to do to attract the best students, what they're going to do to retain those students, and beyond the current crisis. So I don't think it's a hard miss to stay general enough, like, wow, that's exactly what I've been thinking about. Now, as you go into the sale, Ben, as you get further in, they're going to get more specific to their very current real threats. But you can win by staying a bit more general and then diving in at a later point in time.
Well, and I think from a marketing standpoint too, you have your different personas. And so your core why as an organization is going to stay consistent, and then you can apply that to the different markets that you work within.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying, Sarah. That's well put.
And then Carla, this I think was a follow-up to Nicole's question from earlier. And she said, would one idea be to walk the talk and show them how you can solve problems for them with your actions, not your words? And so this ties back to showing clients how you want to partner.
Yeah, absolutely. Because this is where we call it priority positioning, but others might call it branding. But the problem with branding was too visual oriented, versus you should be walking the talk every single day, because when you believe certain things and the entire organization believes that, you all move in that direction. So every single action should support that. Because I tell you, what's really inauthentic is when you say one thing and you do something that's at odds with that. That there's no authenticity. So for example, our organization, we actually go over our elevator pitch. I don't care if you're a designer or a content writer, you know the reasons why we exist and what we believe. And what that's done for us as an example is it drives our product development. It drives all of our behaviors. So Carly, you're right on. I think the actions always speak louder than words. That's why when, Nicole, I think we want to be your partner. And that's, a lot of people say things like that, but it's how do you demonstrate that? And how do you prove it every single day is where the authenticity comes from.
Awesome. All right, guys, we are at 101.
We are, wow, man, I missed it by a minute.
It's okay. We have some good questions there at the end.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. We appreciate it. And like Mike said, watch your inbox tomorrow for that email because we're giving away the elevator pitch challenge. Brian, Mike, anything else you want to add?
No, it's
quick.
sad I didn't get to see everybody's faces. I hope you enjoyed seeing mine. It's good to be facing everybody again. It's been a while.
Cool.
Thank you all for having us, and
yeah.
we look forward to helping you out in the very near future.
Yeah, Susan, Julie, everybody, thank you so much for inviting us in. We really appreciate it.
All right. All right, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Thanks.